Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica Imperialis and to today's video. Today is episode 106 of Adeptus Podcastus. I'm still struggling to get my head around saying things with 100 in front. Why have we been doing this for 4.5 years, Remleiz?
I don't know.
Actually, we just passed, I think, episode 104 was the 4-year anniversary, so we've only just passed 4 years now that I say it, but we are where we are. So, as said, joining me as always is Remleiz from 40k Theories.
Hello, everyone.
And our special guest this week joins us from the vaulted halls of the Black Library itself. Slightly delayed due to one thing or another, but you know how timetables work. Well, I do, teachers. But ladies, gentlemen, Xenos of all ages and everything in between, I give you the author of Mephiston and the Blackstone Fortress, not actually a book, but it would be a really cool crossover. I give you Darius Hinks.
I want to write that book now. That sounds great. Mephiston would have so much fun in the Blackstone Fortress.
Yes.
I think somebody should pitch that. Thank you for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. We always enjoy getting people from Black Library on, even if we don't get any peeks behind the veil, because, you know, it's always great to just get an insight into the minds behind the things that literally make Rem and I's careers.
Yeah, but there are people wearing dark glasses waiting around my house at all times, watching every move I make, and I can just disappear at any time. I've got to always keep that in mind.
Yes. I mean, Remleiz, his self-styled character is a Lord Inquisitor, so he would know all about that.
Yeah. Don't mess with the Black Library editors. They're more terrifying than any Inquisitor.
So I've heard.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But yes, welcome to the show, Darius. In case people are not so familiar with your work, why don't you give us a little bibliography? What have you done for the Black Library? Or just in your own time out of GW? What have you done?
So probably the highest profile thing I've written would be the Blackstone Fortress novels, I guess. So there's two of them, Blackstone Fortress and now Blackstone Fortress Ascension, which ties into the final installment of the game. So, and then a trilogy of Mephiston novels, with the most recent one being City of Light, which was on sale. I think that was still fairly recently, in the past couple of months, I think.
Yeah, I discussed it on the show a few episodes ago. I actually did a full review of City of Light and Revenant Crusade.
Oh, better check that out, see what you thought of it.
You won't find it in the titles. You'll do a lot of scrolling, but I'm sure you'll find it one day.
Check that. So that's there. So Mephiston, but I've also written in other Warhammer settings. So I've written a lot of fiction in the old world of Warhammer, and I've also written in the Age of Sigmar setting, and I've written some non-Games Workshop fiction as well. So I was counting up before this interview, trying to. I think I've written 16 novels now, and about just over 20 books in total. And I'm lucky enough that this is my job now. So for the past 3 years, I don't have to have a real job. I can stay at home writing about wizards and spaceships and get paid for it. So I'm very lucky in that sense. So yeah, I do this full time, which means I'm able to produce a lot more fiction. I used to only write probably about 1 or 2 novels a year, and now it's more like around 4 or 5. So yeah,
which is an average week in Guy Haley's world.
Yeah, I don't measure myself against Guy, But yeah, so that's me. Yeah, I think they're the key things I've done. Yeah,
fair enough. And please, I should have said this before we started recording. Please try not to treat this like a formal interview. In our world, this is 3 people sat around a table drinking recap and chatting about Warhammer. If you mean
I'm not going to get a job offer at the end of this? I'm sat here with my.
I guarantee you, though, there will be people in the comments saying, "Get this man back and make him a permanent host." They do it for some very special guests. They do it for. So I would not be surprised to see it in the comments. Please, we have one. So yeah, it's good to hear. Don't worry about the Mephiston thing. I have read Revenant Crusade and City of Light myself, and Rem, you've read the first Blackstone, or have you got round to the second one yet? Because I know you're busy.
I haven't gone round to the second one yet, but I have read the first one, yeah.
It's quite new. The second one, I think, has only been out a couple of weeks, I think. It's fairly recently released.
Yeah, certainly not too long. But yeah, having read... actually, I got into Mephiston through the Dante novels, actually, and then sort of picked yours up in preparation for Darkness in the Blood.
So Darkness in the Blood, this is the first time this has worked really well, was Guy was writing Darkness in the Blood. We found out that our kind of schedules had just matched perfectly. As I was writing City of Light, which is set just after Mephiston's gone through the process, the crossing the Rubicon, and he's got his new Primaris persona. Guy was writing Darkness in the Blood, in which Mephiston goes through that process. These are probably terrible spoilers for anybody that hasn't read the books.
I don't even think it's out yet. Well, it's special edition out, so I think it's fine.
Yeah, I think so. So there's a lot of that stuff going on that we wanted to make a crossover and make those two books sync. Yeah, Darkness in the Blood is out, isn't it? I've not done. Oh yeah, you're right.
I think it's limited edition is out, but I don't think the general release is out.
Yeah,
like the big.
The general release isn't out available until Halloween. So
yeah,
I am picking it up.
But from the miniature, people know that he's gone through the process, so they know that he's got fancy new armor. But it worked out really well. So the time our schedules coincided that we could exchange work in progress manuscripts as we were writing the two novels.
Yeah.
To make those two, obviously, all the Black Library authors are always hoping to make this really kind of seamless edifice of fiction to make the world seem really convincing that the novels are all pulling in the same direction. And sometimes you can do that better than others. But with the Mephiston novel, Darkness in the Blood, it was really great that we were literally writing at the same time. So we exchanged manuscripts, and some of the scenes occur in both books, but from a different perspective. Which is one of the things I used to love when I used to read years ago, Michael Moorcock novels. I loved the Eternal Champion books. Do you know those?
I've heard of them, yeah.
Elric and Coram and these kind of characters, kind of classic sword and sorcery novels. But what he did was he created this universe where you'd be reading an Elric novel, and then later on you'd read a novel from another character's perspective, but you'd see the same scene from his perspective. And it was just great the way all the stories linked. And I love it when that can happen in 40k. So yeah, Darkness in the Blood. I was able to. Guy's a great writer, and he knows the 40k lore so well that it was really nice to be able to bounce ideas around with.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I think was always has been interesting to me, is knowing that, especially when I read Devastation of Baal first, knowing and meeting like the Octo-Calvarii and Mephiston through that. And part of me went through my head when I was reading the Mephiston novels, like, how obviously there must be some conversation going there, because Guy's Mephiston and your Mephiston felt like the same bloke.
That's great to describe. That's just perfect to hear you saying that.
And Dante as well, roughly. Obviously, one is a deep dive into Dante, the other is a deep dive into Meph. I'll get to my thoughts on Meph later. But when I was reading it, I was thinking, and I think there's a commenter asked this question as well, because you're in the sort of now, I would say, probably the authority on Mephiston, like kind of like ADB was the authority on Night Lords for a long time, and Guy's probably the authority on Gilliman now that he's writing all this stuff. So when Black Library authors say want to write a novel with Blood Angels in it, or want to write a novel where Mephiston makes a cameo, do you expect that? Is it kind of typical that authors will say, hey, I want to use that character, can you give me some cliff notes? Or is it a case of, I'll just go and read their novel and then interpret from there?
So I think it's a bit of both. But I think what you find is certainly people are never possessive over their characters, and obviously Mephiston isn't my character. I didn't create him. I suppose I'm like a custodian of him at the moment, and in the future other people will write about him. And before me, David Annandale had written a novella about him, which is really cool. But yeah, in the short term, I guess I am kind of the expert. And what you find is, so Guy with his characters, he's not possessive. And when you say I'd like to include this character in my book, the BL authors are actually really excited, because it adds to that thing I mentioned earlier, where all the universes, where the universe starts to feel really cohesive. Yeah. And you find these characters walking out of one novel into another. And we all get frustrated on the occasions where that doesn't work so well. And it's exciting when we can make it really mesh.
The infamous Schrodinger's Primarch incident, where Dawn is alive, dead, missing, and located in the space of 5 pages.
No, it wasn't that many pages, about 2.
Or whatever it was. And I think that was why Dawn of Fire was really interesting. Obviously, I'm not going to ask you if you've written for Dawn of Fire, because you would not be allowed to tell me. But I bet the ones where you see that frustration must be like with the Horus Heresy, because it was 51 novels with, I think, 20 odd different authors. Yeah. And sometimes there was a discount. It's
a massive undertaking, that series, and I think it's an incredible achievement. And obviously, there are some slips. And I think, but also what I saw from when I worked at Games Workshop, I saw that some of the really cool parts of the series were actually remedies to problems. So you get that kind of happy accident where a problem would arise. You'd get a contradiction between some of the stories, and the solutions that the authors came up with actually added really cool twists to the series. So in some ways, it was positive. But I think, I can't think of any other series that's been written on the scale of the Heresy series. And I know that the guys writing the Siege of Terror books now, it's a really daunting prospect because obviously there's a big weight of expectation on those books anyway.
Yeah.
But also they've got to try and tie all these loose threads together at this really beloved series with so many different plot strands.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably on the verge of a nervous breakdown. The guys,
and especially because unlike Dawn of Fire, which is the point I was trying to make, is that Dawn of Fire has got Guy and Nick Kine as overseers, if you like. The Heresy didn't have that, and it's the one that strikes me as must have been really tricky was Gotrek, because David Geimer wrote Realmslayer, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you wrote Ghoulslayer. Am I right on that? Yeah,
so Guy wrote the first. Sorry, David Geimer wrote the first Gotrek fiction in the new Warhammer setting, Age of Sigmar, as audio dramas. And I wrote the first novel. And again, that worked really well. And we were able to exchange notes. And also, see, that's a classic example of one author being able to springboard off another one. So Guy did a great job of placing Gotrek in that new setting where he'd established all the things he was pissed off about and all the things he was trying to achieve really clearly. So it was really nice to be able to take his concept and try and be true to it in the novel. And I've not spoken to him since to know whether he thinks I did achieve that, but I certainly tried to. And I think that's one of the things that is quite unique about writing for the Black Library. I've done a bit of non-Black Library fiction, and it's really different in that there are the Black Library editors who have got this oversight over all the stuff that's going through that imprint, and they're like the custodians of that fiction, trying to make sure that everything meshes. But all the Black Library authors, it feels like you're writing as part of a team. It's so supportive. It's a really nice group of people, and it's a really positive attitude that it doesn't feel competitive. It feels like everyone's just pulling together.
Good.
To try and make it's a fun. It's weird because writing a novel is obviously quite a solitary pursuit, but writing about library feels like more of a team effort, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I can imagine that if you actually were to take that to its almost extreme of having co-authoring on a project, I imagine that I don't think I can't speak for everyone, but I bet that very few teams would manage to co-author as well as Black Library probably could. So if, let's say you were writing, I don't know, a novella to depict the events of Psychic Awakening 3, which is where the Blood Angels go crashing back into the Tyranids, having been re-Primaris and diddly. And they said, Guy, Darius, you both got a big hand in this because you both wrote big characters. Write it together, go. Yeah, I get the feeling that you and Guy would get on better.
That could actually work. Yeah, that could, and that's not so far from what happens. Like I say, and I know this isn't unique to me. When I was working on that last Mephiston book, I tried to keep Guys included as I could, and he was sending me drafts of his book, and he was saying, "This is like, I think what he'd say is this is a dog rough version of my." And normally he wouldn't want to show that to people, but he was being so helpful. He let me see it at every stage. So in some ways, it does feel like you're working together on a thing. It's a fun way to work.
I can imagine. Right, in the news, because, oh God, every single time we seem to have a show with someone important on, a jillion things happen in the interim because, a giant pile of new Space Marines and Necrons happened the day after we recorded the last episode. So we've got new flipping flayed ones, more destroyers, more blooming cryptex out the wazoo, Belisarius Call copying Sigmar like a joker. And, oh, good grief, a lot happened at that show, and I didn't expect that. And just what even?
Yeah.
So yes,
I love all those new Necron miniatures. They got so much character into them. The way they're all kind of twisted and creepy looking. I think they've got such a great aesthetic into the new Necrons.
Yeah. So I'm referring for the viewers to the Codex show that happened about 2 weeks ago. Now we got our first look at the Silent King stat line, which is Chunk. The Ophidian Destroyers, which is new canon, basically old wraiths but more murderous. The new flayed ones that I cannot decide whether to be repulsed, annoyed, or creeped out, which is probably exactly what they were going for. A chronometron that wouldn't look out of place in a roboticized Eldari army. A psychomancer that I don't even know, but it's got a techno 8-bit skull thing projection, which is cool. We've got Belisarius Call literally doing the Sigmar thing. I was watching it live and I just went, oh God, they're doing the thing. Oh God, they've done the thing. Why have they done the thing? Why have they done the thing with the hell I can't smash button meme? Oh, we were laughing our heads off when we were watching this live. We also got some of a look into the Space Marine Codex, including some stuff to Crusade, the heavy intercessors, because apparently Primaris Marines need 3 wounds now, and guns that are damaged to baseline, because that's cool. I'm genuinely terrified of how powerful the new Space Marines are going to be, and the new Necrons,
I these things just basically Primaris Terminators, in a way.
So essentially what they've done is, that's exactly what they are. Because after the Space Marines got a bump to 2 wounds on everybody and Terminators got a bump to 3 wounds, everyone was like, well, what's the point of Primaris now? Because sure, they get slightly better guns, but now they aren't really worth it relative to the first one. Well, along come the heavy intercessors and they say, we're 7 power for 5 models, for context, by the by. The Ophidian destroyers are 5 power for 3. We don't know the points yet, but I'm guaranteeing it'll be too little. And we have 42-inch range, damage 2, strength 5, AP -2 guns. Basic. Am I right? No, wrong. 36-inch range, AP -1. Sorry, the Executor bolt rifle is. Everyone can have it as long as you don't take a heavy bolter. Everyone can have it. Oh
boy.
God, why have they given them 42-inch range, strength 5, AP -2 guns at a baseline? Oh God, that they have better cost an arm and a leg, because at the minute I'm just terrified. And this might sound like whinging, so comments, just yell at me. But it really feels like the 9th ed codices are just ridiculous compared to the 8th ed ones, and we're just going to see for 6 to 8 months until they start getting more 9th ed codices out of just, right, what's on the top 20 tables today? Space Marines, Necrons, Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines, Necrons, Space Marines, Space Marines. Oh, some Death Guards, Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines, Space Marines. Oh, welcome back to 8.5 when the Iron Hands broke everything. Yay! I'm slightly snarking, but that's genuinely what I'm worried about.
Slightly.
Yeah, okay. I'm maybe over snarking, but that genuinely scares me of just how powerful those things look. Also, Thunderhammers on Primaris is a thing now. They look like baby Thunderhammers. They're cute.
Good for DIY, maybe.
Absolutely. And then we got the Storm Speeder, which is reset the heavy stubber clock. Start that. Reset the stubber clock, because stubbers are back on Primaris units. And welcome to Deaf Marine, that guy who's got his head stuck between the 2 guns. I would not like to be that guy.
In fairness, his helmet's probably got some audio dampeners, so he probably doesn't hear anything. He's probably listening to some back or something.
Seriously, there must be the least. Why does he have to have his head poking out? That's what targeting computers are for.
Maybe he wants to watch it with his own eyes. Go, I want to see things blow up.
Yeah, I guess. But it's a really interesting design. It's sort of like a super chunky land speeder. It's of the new Primaris vehicles. It's probably, now look at it again, I actually kind of like it. At first, I wasn't sure, but the more I look at it, I do kind of like it.
I just realized, looking at the chassis, it's basically someone just crossed a land speeder with a rhino.
Yeah, it is. That the front of it is really like it's straight off an Impulsor or a Rhino. And to be fair, with the jets the way they are, the back kind of looks like it too. So you can definitely see that. Well, it's got plenty of options, and it can be Ravenwing, which is good. Sort of confirming that the supplements are, well, all the other codices that we're getting are essentially supplements. We get that actually confirmed further down with the announcement of a Space Wolf supplement, a Blood Angel supplement, Death Guard Codex, Death Watch supplement, basically just a giant pile of Space Marine supplements and some Death Guard.
Speaking of Death Guard, I do like that new Death Guard Terminator duty.
Yeah, that's the what they called. I cannot remember the name of the thing now off the top of my head. But yeah, it does look pretty good. Certainly fits very much on theme with Death Guard of having some spewy flamer thingamabob and stomping around in, well, it's not cataphracti armor, but close enough.
It's probably some form of actually, it looks, judging by the shoulder pads, it looks like it could be Indomitus, just connected.
I mean, it looks to me like Tartar with the crest with a bit over the head. Reminds me of Tartarus armor, but I know it isn't. But that's what I thought for a glance. It was like Tartarus armor, but I know it isn't because Death Guard using the mobile Terminator armor. Ha! Who are we kidding? And we also confirmed. Adam Troke was very happy to announce Dark Angels will be on early 2021, as will a Xenos faction. Please be orcs. Please be orcs. Please be orcs. Please be orcs. Please be orcs.
Yeah, it'll probably end up being Craft Worlds, to be honest.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if it was Craft Worlds, as long as they give them new models, or Tyranids, as long as they give them new models. But we saw an orc in the little teaser trailer that they did at the end of the Indomitus launch day show. So I feel like orcs are not too far off.
They also teased Leader of Hesperex, so it could be Drukhari.
Yeah, true. Definitely possible. But I have, if it's orcs and Tau, I have a bias. And speaking of
either that or they combine the Orc and Drukhari codexes to get into one faction, like Orcari or something. And we have a head desk.
That could work.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, there was that one story where you had like an Orc and Gamora playing a harp after all, so...
I mean, it might be interesting to have like a Comorite Pit Fighters unit where it kind of works like where you can just take a little bit of everything in a just blob of pit fighters herded into battle to kill stuff for the amusement of like...
Hey, there you go. There's your answer. There's your excuse to bring Aun Shi into a Drukhari army.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, see that. Do see that. So yeah, a pit fighters type unit where you've got not necessarily the Drukhari, but you've got like orcs, Aun Shi, if you want like a named character to lead them, some captured Space Marines that have had their hypnotherapy broken, and so they just kind of respond to different stimuli now.
You could have Lucius, because he was in there for a time.
Yeah, you could do that. Disgraced Archons, so sort of like Archon level fighters, but without any of the cool kit. And they're constantly trying to backstab the Beastmasters that are probably herding them into battle. You could have like the crowd being projected on this big like screen type thing, and the roar of the crowd kind of spurs them on, or something like that. I don't know what tangent I've just gone off on, but yeah.
I mean, we've had worse.
We've definitely had worse, but probably the biggest thing from the day, well, aside from the Silent King, because he's probably bigger, was the Imperial Armor Compendium, which is essentially probably not all, most of the Forge World units condensed together in one super mega book of data sheets. I think they said 191 data sheets. Plus Death Corps of Krieg rules and other things. So
that's all in one book?
Yep, one book.
Ooh.
Almost, because I don't think they get all the units in. Pretty much every Forge World unit that exists in one book.
And we're still waiting for Fires of Syraxis, which will never come.
Yeah, I think that's one we are just going to have to let die.
Ooh, I want to know how Caleb Cullen got put into a dreadnought.
Makes sense.
Because all we know is like the last Imperial Armor book, yes, he was leading the Red Scorpions, and then all of a sudden, hey, he's got a Leviathan Dreadnought model. Then, okay, what the bloody hell happened to him?
Yep. Absolutely. Right, what else happened? Because I've been so busy, I've barely kept up. Lumineth got their... Sorry,
carry on. I was going to say, they revealed some more stuff about the Todd McFarlane Space Marine and Necron figures. And the Necron one's coming with a little tiny scarab. And it's adorable. Even though
it will never beat Sassy Nurgling.
No, nothing can beat Sassy Nurgling, let's be bloody honest. Nothing beats that.
Yeah.
The sunglasses Nurgling from the Kill Team trailer did come close second, though.
Indeed.
The one that had the sunglasses. He was cool.
Yeah. The Lumineth Realm Lords got their second wave, and I'm not going to go on another price rant, but why a 5 Alarith Stone Guard £36.50? What? Anyway, done with that now. Had that rant.
There you go.
Had that rant last time. Arena.
I like the way with the Lumineth stuff. I've been noticing them as they come out. There's a kind of old school Warhammer feel to that. I think it's the way they kind of rank up with their spears.
Oh, the models are gorgeous. Absolutely, the models are gorgeous. But I don't like paying £36.50 for 10 mod opposed dudes with no weapon options. Get in the bin. I don't. Sorry. Just
each to their own.
Yeah, I guess. Codex Space Marines weapons and war gear updates. This is a bit of rules admin. So Flamer weapons have now got 12-inch range. Yay. Combi Flamers have also got 12-inch range. Yay. Hand Flamers have a 12-inch range. Yay. Heavy Flamers have a 12-inch range. Super yay. Melter weapons have got D6 plus 2 damage instead of rolling 2 keep the highest. Yay. Same for Combi Melters. Heavy Bolters got damage 2. Hooray. Hunter Killer Missiles have got strength 10. Brilliant. Astartes Chainsaws AP -1, we knew that. Power Axes, Power Mauls, and Power Swords have all been chunked up. Yay. And it's just a giant pile. Oh, 1+ saves. How could I forget? 1+ saves. Yes, Storm Shields have been changed. So 1+ saves are now a thing in 40k, guys. Sorry, snarking again. But yeah, that's going to be an interesting one to square that circle. Because I remember when that came up, people were like, what? 1+ saves? How? What? Why? No. But,
yeah, it's not as bad as like in 2nd edition where you could actually have Terminators with a 2+ armor save on 2 dice.
I mean, yeah, the last time we saw something like that was Shadow War Armageddon. I think Terminators had a 3+ armor save on 2 dice. If anyone can remember Shadow War Armageddon, that thing, the precursor to Modern Kill Team.
True. Oh, and there was also that really stupid stuff in 3rd edition, 1,000 Suns Terminators, they're just flat out immune to weapons that are strength 4 or less.
Like bolters, yes. There was another rule change called core units. So some units have got core, some don't. And essentially what it means is that aura abilities will only affect core units most of the time. So all those sneaky people who were hiding a captain to give reroll ones to hit to that tank squadron, sorry, no, thank you. You're not doing that anymore. And it also doesn't affect the characters themselves. So characters can't just have reroll ones on all the time, which is an interesting change. And I think with how sneaky people will be with aura abilities, I don't think it's a bad move. It just remains to be seen how many units actually get core as opposed to whatchamacallit, not.
I presume core units would be things like, you know how back when you had the troop organizational chart, we had like troops, elites, fast attack, stuff like that.
Yeah, it is actually troops.
Oh.
So, for example, Terminators and Lich Guard have core, Bike Squads and Tomb Blades have core, and some vehicles, where appropriate, will have core as well. So it is not strictly troop choices are core. It's a variety of infantry and fast units will get core. So sort of the sort of units you should be building your army around, I guess. But that's kind of what the troop slot is for. But then the troop slot's kind of redundant because of the new Force Org. So, okay.
It sounds like it's being designed in a way to stop people making ultra cheese armies.
Oh god, yeah, it was. It was designed to stop character bubbles being stupid and also to stop vehicles just abusing things that they had no right to abuse. Because if you park like a Primaris captain or a lieutenant next to a tank squadron, that tank squadron is suddenly hitting on re-rolling ones to hit all the time for no conceivable reason, just because they happen to be a Space Marine. It's not like they're getting an inspiring presence because it's not like they can see the guy. He stood behind the tank squadron. I don't know, but I understand why they've done it. It'll just be interesting to see how many units actually get it going forward.
Fair enough.
In more positive news, there's a VR game.
In less positive news, though, it's for Facebook Connect.
It says Oculus Quest. Is that not the Facebook? Oh, it was announced at Facebook Connect for the Oculus.
Oh, same thing.
Same thing. So it's developed
is that a 40k or is that an Age of Sigmar thing or a 40k?
So this is Battle Sister. So it's a 40k game where you play as a sororitas in VR. It's developed by the devs of Freeblade and AOS Realm War. launching on the 12th of November. And of course, there's a Black Templar in that shot. There's a Chaos Space Marine in that shot. And you've got Faith Powers, and it's going to be on the Oculus Quest store. And now I don't actually play in VR, so I don't know how good it will be. But I'm sure then our reviewer friends will tell us very, very soon. What else have we had? Hammer Harlan Warcry.
Can I just also say that regardless of it being like purely an Oculus thing or whatever, it's nice to actually get a 40k game that's not another turn-based strategy game.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, we've been kind of inundated with 40k video games that are just strategy games of some kind or another. I mean, yes, I know the tabletop game is a strategy game in its own right, but we need more stuff like Space Marine, you know? It's more action-oriented games or something, you know? That's just my opinion, at least, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did have a conversation at some point on a previous episode about like different genres they could do. I remember I was saying, why has there never been like a Doom type game for 40k? Because it's the guy is called a Doom Marine and he fights demons. Why have we not had a Doom game equivalent?
I think you can maybe have a Tetris type game.
Yeah, you could do that. Like Rogal Dawn's Tetris.
I don't know what would be falling down, but yeah.
It'll be pieces to reinforce the Imperial Palace.
Oh yeah.
Interspersed with Space Invaders segments or like missile defense segments where you have to
there you go.
Yelling by the Iron Warriors or something.
I think there's money in that. That could work.
Oh dear, yeah. Fury of Magnus sold out in 10 minutes because it always does.
7.
Was it 7?
7.
Oh God! You sent me the link for it because I was up that Saturday morning. I was like, "Hey, go and get the thing." And then I looked at the price of the thing, and it was 40-odd quid. I was like, "Nope,
Is that the new Siege?
Yeah, it's the Siege Novella by
the Graham.
Graham McNeil. Yeah.
Yes, Graham McNeil.
Yeah, they're beautiful books, though. Those things.
Oh, absolutely. So, what was this thing about the McFarlane toys? You mentioned it, and I kind of didn't really get a chance to look at it.
Just some more details in regards to them and how they're also going to be releasing an unpainted version of the Space Marine.
Yeah, it's the one with the bolt rifle rather than the bolt pistol and chainsword, but yes, they do, which is good to see. And they will be so this is the one thing you should be aware of, viewers. This will be available from GW.com, obviously, on Saturday, the 10th of October, which is about a week and a half after this episode comes out. And it's only going to be there for a week. So rather like with the Bandai action figures that we talked about before, this is a very limited run in terms of time. So if you want it, get it.
It'll probably sell out long before them anyway, because that Imperial Fist and Salamander Bandai figure is like, it's going to be made to order. It's going to be up for 2 weeks. They sold out within like an hour. Even though it was supposed to be 2 weeks, it's like, no, it's all gone within an hour. Not selling them anymore.
Oh dear. But you do get a Sassy Scarab.
We do get Sassy Scarab, yes. I can't help but feel that Necron needs like a wash of like Seraphim Sepia or something, or Nuln or something, you know?
I mean, I think the green could certainly do with just a wash because it's very egregiously green. The actual metal, I really like the look of the metallics on it. It's just the green looks really, really out of place. It's so flat, but the rest of it's so rusty, and it's a really lovely rust effect.
If I recall, these won't be in scale with the Bandai figures. I think these are actually slightly smaller.
These are 7 inches tall, and I think the Bandai figures were, 8, 10? I can't remember.
About that, yeah. So it's going to be an inch or two shorter, yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right. There was another Reader's Choice vote to bring back classic novels.
And Lord of the Night didn't win, which I'm very salty about. That should have bloody well won.
I mean, I've read Rin's World, Baneblade, and Firecast, and they're all very good. But yes, Dead Men Walking by Steve Lyons won. And from, actually, you were in this vote, Darius, with Warrior Priest.
I'm still soaking. I think it's a fix.
But yes,
Who
Malice
was
Darkblade.
is it a Dan Abnett book that won?
Dan Abnett has won with Malice Darkblade, beating out Graham McNeil's Heldenhammer and the End Times novel of Nagash by Josh Reynolds. And
I think
another Abnett book. Actually, Abnett's in there twice, would you believe?
Yeah, it's a fix. Who reads Dan Abnett books? They're really unpopular. No one ever read a Dan Abnett. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, maybe.
There was a regimental standard. Why servitors are better than you? Yay. And we also got, I'm going to AOS nerd in a minute. Stop me. The original lore article on where the Sons of Behemoth have come from, because they're finally going to release the Sons of Behemoth. Oh, please get them out before the Space Marine Codex comes out. They need it. They need it. They need it. They just need to get out now. We need the Mega Gargants now before they get drowned in Space Marines.
Did they get delayed then, or was this a Corona thing? Were they?
So Lumineth was supposed to come out all the way back in April, and Behemoth was supposed to come out not long after, because the General's Handbook that came out on time in July or so had their points in. So they were supposed to be out in advance of the handbook, but the handbook came out on time. The Lumineth have only just come out. So they've been bumping it due to COVID, we assume. And they're finally building up the hype for it now. They've got past the Lumineth. They've just got to sneak it in the midst of all this Space Marine deluge of stuff. But it's a really cool article talking about Imnog, Behemoth, Mega Gargants, and the theory that they're making a new God Beast because Mega Gargants only popped up after Behemoth died in the Realm Gate Wars. Yay.
Now, are those Gargants about the size? I'm imagining they're about the size of a kind of toddler. Is that the kind of... I'm thinking like 3 foot tall?
I haven't seen one obviously in person, but they have put it next to other miniatures, I think. I just need to find a photo of them two next to each other. There was one on Facebook where they showed off a Mega Gargant's rule for the Order Mega Gargant, the Kraken Eater. And it is gigantic. As it should be. As it absolutely should be. I don't think it's quite the size of a toddler.
They should have got it. I'm guessing it's like the kind of Archaon or the Nagash, that sort of, those kind of sizes, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see the base size, because I've got a Teclis in front of me, and Teclis is on a 105mm base. So I'll be curious. Actually, it's a very warped 105mm base. I'm talking to customer service about getting that replaced. I'm really curious what base they're going to be on and how tall they stand, because I've got a Marathi, but it's Nagash, I think, stands tallest. Even over Archaon, I think Nagash stands taller.
Okay.
So I'll be curious to see how they stack up to the big guns of AOS. They also confirmed for AOS that all the battalions that were stuck in White Dwarf are getting points and actual official rules. So the legendary battalions, are there any of them there that I'm going to use? No, because there's 1 Ossiarch, 2 Stormcast. No, correction. 3 Stormcast, 1 Fireslayers, 1 Slanesh, 1 Nighthorn, 1 Orcs. Never mind. None of them are there for me. But it's good to see that the White Dwarf stuff is actually legal now, which is good. Good. Oh, and the Squigglelange. Of course, I forgot about the Squigglelange thing. Is that... Oh, Titanic pre-orders. So Forge World have got the big Warlord, Warbringer thing. So that's a thing now. And I think that...
Is that the one with the massive volcano cannon that's back?
Yes, that one. The Nemesis Warbringer. And we got confirmation that battle zones, etc., so the tactical deployment stuff is out next week, which means that we will be seeing the new chapter-approved stuff very, very soon, and we'll get our heads around all of that deployment stuff to get our heads around how they want gamers to build their own battlefields at tournaments now and bring their own terrain, and that's going to be fun, but it could be cool. And I think in the space of about 15 to 30 minutes, I've rattled through the news. Apologies for that, folks. I just had to go at 100 miles an hour because I realised that talking about the news is not why you watched in this show today.
No. I'm sure you'd like to ask Darius a few things about the Mephiston novels, though, wouldn't you?
I certainly wouldn't say no, though I'm conscious that if I do that, then you're not going to talk for the next chunk of time because you haven't read them yet.
It's fine. To be fair, it's probably going to be a while till I get around reading them anyway, because I've still got so many other things on my reading list. I've got like about 3 or 4 bookshelves completely full and overflowing to the point where I've got piles of books piling up on the floor.
Yeah, I've got sympathy with that. There's no real connection between how many books I can read and how many I buy. They kind of separated years ago.
Yeah.
I feel like it's all
so instead of like most hobbyists have a pile of shame of just unused sprues, you have a pile of shame of unread books.
I've got a room of shame of unread books. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay, where do I start? Oh God, probably the most interesting thing that I picked on, and I know you foreshadowed this very well, and I know it kind of wasn't your idea originally either because it goes way back. The 3 soul split thing.
Yeah.
That was really interesting to have Mephiston. So I heard the idea of like 2-souled Mephiston before.
Yeah, I think I called it the threefold soul or something. But yeah. He's been reborn twice. Yeah.
Yeah, and just sort of how much Mephiston's power is that he can send his brain off to stand next to, I've forgotten his name, the other librarian bloke, say, do this, do that, do the other, I'm busy. Have his soul literally holding a spinning time machine in place, whilst his blood demon that is clearly not a vampire, I swear it's not a vampire, has run off to flipping Prospero itself to go and find the rest of it and deal with all this nonsense. And just like, where did that come from?
He goes to the planet of the sorcerers, doesn't he? But I think, and one of the things to bear in mind that when he does that, he doesn't necessarily go quite as smoothly as he planned, and the section of his psyche that is the sort of the barbaric, wild, bestial side of the Blood Angels, he's hard to control. Shall we put it that way?
He can't seem to remember why he's there or what he's doing half the time, or even his own name.
Yeah. But I have to admit, that was partly an excuse to have a kind of uber violent character rampaging through somewhere that's really mad, being the planet of the sorcerers. I've always thought the planet of the sorcerers was a really interesting bit of the 40k IP, and I remember it being mentioned in some of the really early books. I think the Realm of Chaos books, I can't remember, a Rogue Trader. So it was mentioned really early on. I've always liked the idea of setting something on that planet, and obviously it's now reappeared in the physical material galaxy, wrenched out of the Immaterium. So yeah, I thought, great, send Mephiston there. But yeah, he can't just go waltzing in there or sailing in a spaceship. So yeah, I had to think up some kind of crazy psychic way of doing it. But yeah, as you say, he's always had that strange aspect, and I think it's Guy did some really good work in Darkness in the Blood of clarifying how he sees that the fact that he's so unique in the chapter. He's got a unique role because obviously he's escaped the curse, the flaw, and because of this strange rebirth process that he's been through. I'm rambling now. I've forgotten the original question, but yeah,
it's kind of just like obviously you said like the idea of where did that come from. I wanted just to go on a massive murder rampage, and I get that.
He's all about repression. I think the thing with Mephiston is, and I suppose all the Blood Angels, you've got the angel and demon thing, and it's all about that kind of repression and that gothic duality thing, Jacqueline Hyde stuff that they've got going on. And I think Mephiston is like the extreme archetype of that. He's like the extreme exemplar of that. So I thought it was nice at some point in one of these novels just to tear that all down and see the really feral side of him go crazy. And that's really fun stuff to write.
And right after that, right at the end, there's the 2 character arcs. There's the junior librarian whose name was again gone straight out.
Antros.
Antros, that's it.
Yeah.
Because his character arc is set up in Revenant Crusade, and it's brilliant. I love how that pays off. Of him going to see these people who've supposedly repressed the void and so on and so forth, and essentially being corrupted by this Justice Plan Zinj demon stuff.
Sorry, go on. Yeah,
the way that arc pays off right at the end of City of Light is it looks like Mephiston is bang to right. He's done. He's lost. He's had it, and yet Antros does a thing with a staff. He channels himself into a staff.
Yep.
And suddenly everything's all right. It almost feels like there's a chapter missing where Mephiston sort of hints at, hey, Mephiston trusts in the staff.
Yeah.
It almost feels like Mephiston just flukes it.
Yeah,
I don't know. It kind of feels like he flukes it, and it's just sort of because the next chapter is the epilogue. Andros is dead. He's chucking away his mural scribbly thingamabob, and it's like, right, we've done that. That's in the past now. It's over. Forget it. It's like, how did you? What? How did you get your body back together? How did you get back from Sortiaris? And what just happened?
I'm trying to remember what happened at the end of that book. So since then, I've written another 3 books, and I'm trying to remember.
Okay, so my recollection of how it goes is Sortiarius Mephiston, so Blood Rage Mephiston, is caught by the Tzeentch demon who thinks he's got them all banged to rights. Antros has been.
So it's coming back. It's going to say Antros. So in an earlier scene, so there's a flaw. So there is a staff that is given to him by Mephiston, specifically because there is a flaw in the staff that Antros is using. So Antros is kind of a dupe in a way, and hopefully there's a bit of pathos in his character as well, because he's not a malign character, and he's trying to do the right thing all the way through the story. He's trying to. Mephiston has got these kind of fanboys in his orbit. There are lots of people are very scared of him, but there are people also who are also trying to defend him and see the value in him. And Antros is one of those. He's not a bad guy. He's trying to do the right thing. But Mephiston, so Mephiston is known for a long time where Antros's route is taking him, and he knows that he's got a significant role to play, and he gives him this staff. I can't remember. I think it's a staff of a previous chief librarian or something. Was it? I can't remember.
Yeah, I forget the name, but it said, "When in doubt, trust in this."
Yeah, he does trust in it, and it's basically when Antros is too lost to save himself, his soul is damned, basically. But there's a flaw in that staff that means it kind of effectively reverses the polarity of the whole Tzeentchian rite that's happening at the end of that book. So Mephiston has put the pieces in place. So it looks like Antros is going to doom them all, but inadvertently Antros is actually saving them. Does that make any sense?
It does, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just,
I think that was the gist of it.
It's just because, and this is not a critique of it at all, it's just that Antros dies to the staff thing. Next page, Mephiston is back. All 3 parts are back together and it's all over. And then smash cut to the planet of the sorcerers, where the demon prince is getting shoved into a disco ball of screaming souls.
Yeah, Magnus is not happy with him.
I like that. Nice touch. And then it's like, right, Antros is dead. Move on. Done. Mephiston doesn't explain himself. There's no chapter where Mephiston puts himself back together.
Is there not?
There's no time where
I did miss a chapter out.
It's not that it doesn't work, because Mephiston is supposed to be mysterious, but at the end of Revenant Crusade, which I know is a long time ago in your head now, at the end of Revenant Crusade, where he's talking to the Necro, he's like, this is a thing. This is what it does. I'm going to kill you all with this now. And he just goes off on a superhero / evil villain monologue. He says, here's the thing, here's what it's going to do, and here's why I'm going to use it to kill you all. Bye, and leaves.
And then City of Light is the opposite. He doesn't.
It's because he's bound to rights. Antros does a thing. Smash cut. We've won. And so
that sounds like that sounds like me. I'm trying to remember. Yeah, no, I think there are subtle things seeded in through the novel that
the payoff of the staff, and he knows that he sort of has an idea that he's following this thing, but he doesn't trust the thing, and he's got Antros as his backup plan, and he knows his whole 3 soul thing. He plays that off. It all pays off. There's just a smash cut of just about 4 pages where Mephiston is like,
isn't there a scene with him and Rosellas at the end? So Rosellas being
the epilogue where they're scribbling about the thing.
Epilogue, right?
Yeah, they're scribbling. They talk about the thing that he's been scribbling on, and they throw it away, and they say Antros is dead, and Mephiston doesn't really answer anything to Rosellas or us. End, and it's just like. Yeah. It's not bad because it leaves the door open, and I'd have just been really.
I do have a tendency to be a bit oblique. So my favourite problem with reference points are things like I'm a big fan of David Lynch films, and I'd say, I do have a tendency sometimes to obscurity. So it could be a bit of that going on there. Maybe
I think it's just because Revenant Crusade did pay off so well that I was always expecting the same. Because Mephiston's art with the Necrons pays off beautifully, and Antros is set up with the Necron, with the Chaos thing, pays off beautifully. And it's just like it's 4 pages of like, okay, Mephiston having a meditation where he remembers what he's done, and it's just like a 2-page flashback. And again, it works even if it isn't there, but it just left me thinking, hang on, what did I miss? Hang on, back, hang on. It's, again, not a critique per se, just it's like, okay, we're over now. But it's really, really good stuff.
Perhaps I was running out of time. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious, why Tzeentch? Because obviously Khorne and the Blood Angels go back, well, all the way back with Kabandon, and Guy uses Kabanda in Devastation of Baal. So what was the idea for Tzeentch?
Well, there's the whole wizard's duel element of it that I liked anyway. So the kind of sorcerer versus psyker thing, but also there was a lot happening with the psychic awakening. I thought it was I like the idea. This idea of Magnus has returned, and he's trying to build this kind of physical. I think I called it the New Kingdom, and he's trying to build this kind of physical realm in the galaxy. And I thought that seems like a key aspect of the story. So you've got the Cicatrix Maledictum, if I said that right. The Great Rift has torn the galaxy in half, and it's one of the effects of that was a big a change for Mephiston. So in the Revenant Crusade book, the idea was that the emergence of the Rift has thrown his already crazy psychic powers over the edge, and really that novel's a battle about him as well as getting past the Necrons. He's battling to keep a lid on himself, and he's I think one of the things of Mephiston, he's kind of a poster boy for the Blood Angels without the curse that have survived the flaw, as long as he doesn't go off the rails. But if he goes off the rails, then he's kind of like the final nail in their gothic coffin. He's proof that they're screwed. So he's got all that on his shoulders.
Yeah,
so that was
salvation and damnation all at once.
Yeah, and he's very conscious of that. So he's got this immense power, but he's also got these incredible pressures on him that if you put a foot wrong, he kind of can damn this glorious chapter, this ancient chapter.
Yeah, cue the Uncle Ben scene from Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I guess that's a much more efficient way of saying what I've just tried to say. But yes, so he's got that, and I think that through the middle book, that's what he was battling with, as well as the obstacle of the Necrons. And really with the Necrons, I just thought the Necrons are a good opponent for a Psyker, because they're like the anti-Psyker with their more technological aspects. But then in the third book, Mephiston's really got a lid on his problems by that point, because he's been through the Primaris process. He's crossed the Rubicon, and he's so that's helped with some of the really the looming disaster with his psychic powers. He's now got much more control, but that's also enabled him to realize the significance of this. He's been on this kind of personal mission through the three books. There's a demon called Zadkiel that he's been pursuing, and he's known that it's really significant, but not really known why. And in the third book, he realized that it's all to do with the Great Rift. And if he doesn't intervene in time, that the psychic awakening and the Great Rift is going to spiral out of control, even worse than it is, and reach like the soul system, and all these terrible things are going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense that way. Yeah, I get that when you put it that. I had the idea of like Wizard's Duel in my head, but yeah, that makes total sense. And I have to say, one of the things that I found really interesting in City of Light in particular.
Sorry, I lost you there a little bit. Sorry.
Just one of the things in City of Light in particular was like every time Mephiston stands within 500 hours of a normal human, he's being a colossal jerk. Like he comes down on this Mechanicus world. It's like, I love Blood Angels. You have saved us. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're not here for you. Bye. We're off.
So that's the second. Yeah, that's in the second book, isn't it? That's in the Revenant Crusade. Is that right?
Yeah, and then there's the one with the human general who witnesses the cult that goes on to go into the Silver Tower mountain range. And he's like, yeah, I've just kind of sealed your mind off so that I can interview you, and you're going to just go mentally insane.
He's a harsh
character.
Years. Yeah, and I think one of the things I thought was interesting was if he's so driven, he's got this. I thought of him as obviously Space Marines are inhuman by their nature. But I thought he would be particularly kind of what's the word, like uber kind of
aloof.
Yeah, but also I was thinking driven. So what I was thinking is, and Precious I mentioned earlier, this burden he carries because he's so significant to the chapter and the Spider-Man thing. I was thinking, in a way, that could seal his fate, because he's almost becoming the monster. Because he's so driven that he's leaving this carnage, like this. He's dragging the weight of all these souls around behind him. These people, these deaths he's caused.
Yeah, and for another famous movie quote, one often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it. Almost.
Yeah. I think what's that?
Kung Fu Panda.
Sorry,
Kung Fu Panda. That quote.
I've seen the second Kung Fu Panda film, and I could only dream of reaching those heights. But yeah. So what was it? Yeah. So he's a horrific person to be around. But I think that kind of goes without saying. The Lord of Death. He's a horrific character, and lots of people in his own chapter, the Space Marines and Blood Angels, are unnerved by his presence. So he needs to be a deeply troubling character. So that made him interesting to try and make him sympathetic. And still be terrifying.
Yeah, because he's a character. He's kind of like the inverse of Erebus. Hear me out on this one, because it's going to confuse you, Rem, or me possibly. I don't know where I'm going with this. But Erebus is a character, and Lorgar are characters that they tried quite hard, particularly with the Lorgar Primarch novel, to make you like, or at least feel sympathetic for. You just don't. They're just evil and they're horrible and you hate them.
Well, they're the fun characters to write. I think they're the fun. I think, I can see the appeal of writing those characters. Yeah, Mephiston obviously not quite.
But Mephiston is the inverse of that. He's a character that, if you read his backstory, you're supposed to hate this guy because he's a mass murderer. He's gone on serious sociopathic rampages. He leaves corpses in his wake, whether he means to or not. He's a dick to everyone that's not a blood angel, and actually everyone who is a blood angel while we're at it, not named Dante.
That's not strictly true. He's got a couple of friends. But anyway, carry on,
And you're not supposed to like him from his backstory. And yet you write him in such a way that actually you are egging him on.
At least, if you could at least sympathise with him, I guess that's the best I can. I mean, he's a classic 40. He's built in that 40k hero mould. And we mentioned Inquisitors earlier. They're these people that do terrible things, but they're not villains. And they've got the 40k universe. It's not like our universe. Is that demons are real? All these terrible things that we can only imagine as nightmares are fact. So in that kind of scenario, you need brutal extremes to have any chance for humanity to have any chance of surviving. People like Mephiston are essential, and he has to do the things that other people would never dream of, would not be able to do, and. So it's getting that balance right. I don't want to make him cuddly. You don't want to cuddly Mephiston. No. He's got to be intimidating and aloof and arrogant and terrifying. But I wanted to. That was part of the challenge, was hopefully to make him at least sympathetic.
Yeah, because the two things that are really good for me was the one where he's meditating in his ship, and it's basically the way. Maybe it's just my mind's eye, but it's when Rathalos walks into his meditation, like, Mephiston, we have a problem. And he's literally, it sounds like he's just got like a blood vampire wings of like flames, whatever, coming out of his body while he meditates.
I don't know whether, I think that's, I read too many Clive Barker novels when I was young, but he's flayed himself and he's basically made a web of his own skin.
And then you have the scene with the Harlequin where they've sent Chaos Space Marines illusions at the Blood Angels, and Mephiston's like, no, this is not the rage. What's going on here then? Blast through it. As the Harlequin, you are going to take us through the webway, through the rift, to do this thing, through this like Titanic entity, whatever. What if I don't? I won't give you your precious bauble back, but I'm going to just stop. Where's my knife? I already have your knife. It's just like, oh yes, Mephiston.
I mean, he's got a. It is tricky with any Space Marine, but with someone like Mephiston especially. To give him challenges, because he is so incredibly powerful, and he can step through time, and he can do all sorts of strange psychic stuff that even a normal librarian might be unable to do. But then you're left with the problem of thinking, well, what are the challenges for him? So that's why a lot of the challenges I've given him are kind of internal ones, and this weight of responsibility for his chapter of doing the correct honourable, because he's still he's a very honourable person, like any Space Marine. He's proud and honourable, and there are ways that he can go wrong. There's not many ways he can be physically defeated. And obviously people know that I'm not going to kill Mephiston in these books, so it's trying to think of other ways to make him seem at risk of failure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that I've commented on before with someone like Phil Kelly, because Phil Kelly, you might not, well, you probably do not know this, but I'm a massive Commander Farsight fan. Farsight is my guy. And Phil Kelly writes Farsight in such a way that I already know exactly what's about to happen, because I've seen it happen before, and yet it's still stupid engaging. I knew Mephiston couldn't die in City of Light. I knew he was going to win, which I mean not die, but you still set it up in such a way as like, wait, it looks like he's banging to rights, and then something happens and he wins. But it still sets up really well. Actually, wait, Mephiston can lose. And just because he's winning this time, you've set enough seeds up that if another author or yourself are commissioned to do a Mephiston novel where he does slip, you or that person have got so much resource of like, this is where he'll go, and this is
how he definitely lose. Yeah, he can lose, and the stakes for him are massive, and he can lose on a huge scale. He's not going to get shot in and fall over, but he can wreak havoc, and the consequences of him failing are massive. And I guess that's normally a novelist writing some kind of adventure novel, your character would be scared. That would be the key thing, and their challenge would be how do they overcome their fear of their obstacles. And Space Marines don't really have that. I know there's the whole no fear thing, and I think sometimes that can be taken too literally. They will have fear of failure, I'm sure, and they have different kinds of fears, fear of disgrace and dishonor and those kind of fears. But it's trying to wrong foot the reader and at least get that element of suspense. And it feels a great writer.
It worked. Yeah. I'll just say, with City of Light especially, it worked. Like with the Necrons, it's like the Necrons were so insane. It's like, well, I think it also didn't help that I'd already bought City of Light when I owned Revenant Crusade, so I already knew Mephiston. I hadn't read it because I was holding myself back, but I knew the book was already out and I already owned it. So I was like, I knew Mephiston was going to win this, and I didn't know where it was going. But it's like the Necrons being there were very much a placeholder for Mephiston's internal dramas, as it were. But even when you're not writing Space Marines, and Rem would probably be better to comment on this because he's read it. In the Blackstone Fortress novel, you've got to write about men of iron, blokes, Kroot, Eldar, squats, ratlings, ogrins, all within the space of 5 feet of each other, and set up this giant universe that essentially you've got creative control over in the form of the Blackstone Fortress. That must have been a project.
The thing with that, Nick Kime at the Black Library asked me, it was around the time I'd gone full time as a writer, if I'd be up for doing that. And I knew, because I'd worked at Games Workshop, I knew about that Blackstone Fortress project. So I'd already seen the miniatures from the first box set, and they are the aspects of 40k that I most, I would feel so excited about, these weird, peripheral, quirky characters. So yes, I jumped at the chance of that. But yeah, no, that setting is, I think that's a gift to a writer, because those characters are not meant to be together. Those factions, those races, they are obviously antagonistic. And I love the idea. And the studio invented the idea of precipice didn't come from me. That was invented for the game. And I love this kind of frontier Wild West town where these characters that would normally be just gunning each other down have got to try and work together. And in the first book, it's just purely fueled by greed. And in the second book, Ascension, it's fueled by fear of the terrible consequences of what's happening with the Blackstone Fortress. They have to pull together to avert disaster, kind of thing. But yeah, that was what you want in a good story is extreme dynamics and characters who despise each other having to work together. is brilliant for that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Rem, if you can remember the Blackstone novels, I know you've read about 20,000 books in between, but I don't know if there's anything from that novel that stuck with you that you wanted to ask about.
I was going to say that, because I actually did tweet you about this after I finished reading it, how that book could be perfectly translated into like an action adventure film kind of thing. It just had that feel about it, and it was just you kind of like feel you have to be eating popcorn all the way through reading for this thing,
Yeah, it's a brilliant setting, and I don't take the credit for all it. So one of my key inspirations when I was writing the scenes inside, because as well as that fun dynamic of the character, the mutually antagonistic characters having to work together, that's great. And then there's Precipice, which has got that real Mos Eisley feel of melting pot of all these people crushed together. That's fun. But then the Blackstone Fortress, this brutalist, nightmarish setting, a lot of that I was inspired by. I'd seen the Paul Dainton. Have you heard of Paul Dainton, one of the Games Workshop studio artists?
Yes.
A really amazing artist who produced a lot of key Games Workshop paintings. And I'd seen a lot of his concepts and spoken to him as he was working on them for the Blackstone Fortress internals. And I just thought that was such a cool setting. And it doesn't feel quite the same as other 40k settings. It's obviously rooted in it. And I think... And weirdly, I think since then, the the material, the substance Blackstone, not Noctilith, it's called. There's I think he's become a key part of the 40k narrative, but the actual inside of the fortress is a really strange environment that didn't quite feel like the rest of 40k. So that was fun as well. It felt like a different kind of corner of the galaxy.
It's very surreal, very very. I was gonna say, like, I had a lot of. I kept thinking of what's his name? Oh god, who was named the artist who made the melting clocks? I forgot his name.
Oh, Salvador Dali, yeah.
That's it,
Salvador, yeah. And there's also
I was going to say
Escher
Diwali
well.
for some reason. I was like, no, that's a holiday.
Yeah, it's Salvador Dali and also the Escher drawings of people walking up impossible staircases. There's a lot of that stuff in there.
Dali, Escher, and Picasso all rolled into one.
Which
for
is
a graphic
great.
Filter.
Yeah, for me that's either good or bad, because I think either my weakness or my strength is that I love writing really surreal, mind-bending kind of set pieces and locations, and it really gave me free reign to go to town with that.
One thing I did want to ask, because if I recall correctly, the navigator character in the first book. It's actually a different name from the navigator from the actual game.
Yeah, he's a different guy. So it wasn't that not an accident. I knew about that. I had all the characters' information. The key thing was I wanted to give that navigator a backstory, and there was a crucial plot element was that I needed that navigator to die. So that's essentially why I didn't want to use the named guy from the game.
Right.
Because I wanted to kill him off.
I wasn't sure if it was something like, that was the original name of the character during the early design process of the game, then he changed it partway through, but you were partway through writing a novel, I can't change it now.
That can happen. That kind of thing can happen. I've worked on there's a novella I wrote years ago called Island of Blood, which was a Warhammer.
That's for the fantasy box game from
the old fantasy many years ago, and I remember that being a really tricky process because they were working on the game as I was writing the tie-in story, and things in the Games Workshop studio they do change. It's right until the finish line. The people in that studio are so driven to get the quality. They know that everything hinges on absolute quality. So they don't. It can be like the 11th hour, and they'll rewrite big chunks of what they're doing if they think it's not good enough. So that's great and it's commendable. But if you're trying to write tie-in fiction that goes alongside the thing, it can be a bit hairy. But no, with Blackstone Fortress, that didn't really happen. It was all pinned down. And like I say, the navigator. I love the miniature that's in. I love the guy that's in the game. I wanted to kill my navigator off, and I'd got a specific backstory, and it didn't mesh with what was going on in the game. So I thought there could be more than one navigator there.
Yeah, makes sense. And with less precipice, more the fortress itself, because it's obviously a project that you've just said was being written by the Games Workshop team first.
Yeah.
How much sort of space when you're writing these tie-in novels / sort of spin-offs of an expansion? Tie-in images. How much freedom do you really get? Because especially with Ascension, you've got Obsidious Malax is trying to destroy the Blackstone Fortress. You must stop him destroying the fortress. Your book will be the canon version of what happens in Blackstone Fortress Ascension. So do you have to follow like some of the missions in the book and make it flow through?
So I think, no, that's a really pertinent question, because in the past that was the way it worked. So the Black Library would try and write something that linked very closely to the narrative of the game, and they realised that really isn't what. It doesn't give people anything new. So what you've got in the rule book, the guys in the studio write really interesting narratives anyway about the game. There's fiction in the products that you buy from the main range studio. And what Black Library needs to give you is something that sits alongside that, but is different. Yeah. So the novels, anything like the Blackstone Fortress novels, that you do get quite a wide remit, and I'll say it needs to fit within the aesthetic of the game and key characters. Usually they'll want you. So Drake being such an iconic character and kind of a figurehead, they were keen that I would write about him. But beyond that, the actual plot, I was given a lot of free reign. In the second book, Ascension, I want to mention too many spoilers, but there's something quite dramatic that happens with Precipice. So I couldn't ignore that, and that did dictate some of the plot. But no, it's actually quite free. You've actually got quite a lot of freedom as an author, because they want you to do something different. They want to, and also the demands of a novel are very different from the demands of a good narrative in a game. Obviously, it's a completely different medium, and something that works great in a game would make quite a flat novel. So, by necessity, you need to do something slightly different. So that's a waffly way of saying yes. You actually get quite a lot of freedom, even in something that ties into a specific release. Obviously, if it's a character you've invented, if it's a ghost type thing where you've invented a group of character, then you get even more freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. One question I always ask a Black Library author whenever they come on is there a character or a faction or a something that you want more books about but would never want to write yourself?
Well, I think that's a good question. So I think there's as of now there is a 40k Orcs novel on sale. I forget is it Mike Brooks? I think. Yeah,
Mike Brooks. I think Ram's just been reading it, I believe.
I'm about halfway through it. Yeah.
See, and as far as I'm aware, is that from Orc POV?
Surprising that it's not entirely from Orc POV. It's split between the Orc POV, Adeptus Mechanicus POV, and what appears to be a Chaos Space Marines POV as well.
Oh, okay. Okay, so my point would be then. So I love the idea of a novel that tackles. So if you can get that right, because I think that the balance you get with the Orcs, which is that mixture of comedy and terror. They should be terrifying. There's an element of they are funny, but they need to also at the same time be terrifying. I think that's a great challenge that I don't think I would dare tackle. But if somebody can get that right, I think that could be amazing.
Yeah, because from what I've gathered in this book so far, the chapters from the Mechanicus point of view, they depict the Orcs as being really terrifying, but the ones from the Orc point of view, it's like a bunch of lads having a laugh in it, kind of thing.
Yeah, that could work if you're showing it from the two different viewpoints. I remember talking to somebody in the studio at Games Workshop, and then they said they always imagine Orcs as being like you're at a zoo and you're looking at a really big primate. And it's kind of picking its nose or something, and it's inherently kind of amusing. But you know that if you got near to it, it could rip your arm off and hit you with the bloody end. Kind of, you need that balance of kind of slightly amusing, but also absolute the lethal nature.
Yeah,
of it.
It's kind of like actually it's like modern Necrons. It's like modern Necrons are utterly terrifying, but if you actually write about any given Overlord or Pharaon or Cryptek, they're just so nuts that it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I just want to say, going back to the gorilla analogy, I'm just reminded of that meme saying things like, sure, the Eldari are superior to humans, but they're still scared of Space Marines, the same reason you would be if a gorilla came walking into your room clad in armor and wielding a shotgun.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of Necrons, one thing I did notice right at the end of this, at the end of the Brutal Cunning novel, there's an extract for The Infinite and the Divine, which is not out until like mid-October.
No, that's going to be a good book, Mr. Rath's, as you call it, the Necron gay romance novel.
Yes.
I've not. So who's written that one?
Robert Rath.
Oh, I've not read any of his stuff.
I think this is his debut novel.
Okay.
Did he write War in the Museum as well?
Yeah, that was a short story, not a novel.
Okay, fair point.
Yeah, I think this is a debut full-length novel, yeah.
Okay.
Or at the very least, a debut one for Black Library.
Yeah, it's great when they get new authors coming through. You get the different voices. We were talking ages ago in this interview about the way that authors work together to try and have a unified feel to characters. But I think the flip side of that is it's always really good fun when you get people with a different take. So I've done some Gotrek stuff, and I love the way with the Gotrek novels and stories, so many different people have tackled him, and they try and be true to his character, but obviously every author's got a slightly different style, and I think it's fun seeing the different takes. I guess if you buy a Spider-Man comic by a different artist, and you get that different flavour.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of new guys, I've just been reading Realm Lords, which is by Dale Lucas, who is another new arrival.
I don't know him. Oh, right.
But I've been reading that, and I've just got to the bit where
spoilers.
I don't consider this a spoiler really, because it's kind of also canon from the Battle Tome, where there's a pair of Iliathan twins. Now, Iliatha is a realm of Hysh, where they use cloning technology. It was very common amongst the Lumineth before the Okari Dara, which is essentially the AOS for the Eldari, but with an asterisk, no, it's not. And this cloning practice essentially is a soul split, kind of like Fabius Bal does, but you're limited to one.
Yeah.
And the two twins, one's a spearman, one's an archer, which is quite common. And it's basically like talking with the Lutesses from BioShock Infinite. And it's absolutely hilarious. If you've played BioShock Infinite, there's these two twins, Robert and I've forgotten the name, Lutess. And they basically just bicker with each other constantly, whilst also providing exposition to the player. And they're always involved in this time loop that's involved in BioShock Infinite. They're involved in all the key events, but they're always there doing a thing, and they're constantly bickering and finishing each other's sentences and correcting each other. And it was like, wait, I'm literally reading a book about hammer-wielding, cow-worshipping elves, and I've got the Lutesses from BioShock Infinite here. What?
I think Warhammer's getting more and more strange. I think you mentioned Phil Kelly earlier. I know he's one of the senior Age of Sigmar writers, and he's really into kind of the strange stories from mythology and ancient myths, all the weird stuff you get about the Greek gods or whatever. And I think
AOS is just a Greek tragedy. That's all it is.
Yeah, but with all the lunacy that goes with it, and it's getting weirder, which is great because Warhammer. I think one of the appeals of Warhammer was always how strange it was compared to other fantasy that was out there. It's always been really weird. Going back to the old kind of Rick Priestley days, it's always been really odd setting.
And I guess for you,
part of its appeal.
And I guess for you with Blackstone and Mephiston, you get to play with the Looney Tunes physics.
They're definitely my favourite bits. The weirder the better, definitely. But 40k is all pretty weird, isn't it? I don't think there's the same corner.
Yeah, but there is definitely, certainly when you read Mephiston doing his time warp thingamajigs, it is basically just Looney Tunes physics that is going on. It's just it's super serious Uber death with a hint of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, no, that's a fair cop. Yeah, definitely. That's the kind of stuff that's fun to write.
Absolutely. One question we have from our commenters was about the artwork for the Mephiston novels, and I think I spoke with David Geimer during a previous show about how you guys don't really get an input, or you don't really get to see the artwork until it's done.
Sometimes, so I think with some of the I think with the first Mephiston one, I did see a bit early. It depends. So there's no obligation for the guys working at Games Workshop to send. You said you don't get approval, but I have over in time because I worked at Games Workshop. I know some of the people. Maybe that's why. But I have seen some of them. But to be honest, it's kind of exciting when you don't see it until it's printed and you see it, and it's all because you get these wonderful packages. One of the beautiful things about being a writer is when it's sample copies day and you get a box of free books delivered to your house. And I know with some of them, it was the limited edition of the first Blackstone Fortress novel. I don't know whether you've seen that. It's got a kind of blue foiled cover
I've got that
with shattered kind of prisms and things on it. I had no idea what they were doing for that. And I nearly fainted when that came into the house and I saw this amazing looking book. So in some ways, I kind of prefer it when I don't get to see the covers. But and they're really conscientious. So they'll read. So the people commissioning the artwork will have read through the synopsis of the novel and made sure.
Because the commenter was like, Mephiston seems to be getting less angry with every book cover. It's like, actually, when you think about it, he is.
No, that's a really, so that is actually spot on. So the only bit of kind of, I wouldn't say art direction, but the one thing I had requested was specifically that by book 2 he was meant to look pretty feral. Because that's the book where, so that's before he's gone through the Primaris process, and he was really losing control of his psychic powers by that point. So he was in a really dark place. So that's the book where we was talking about earlier, where he's flayed himself, and it's a little bit Clive Barker. And I think I did ask if by the second book he could have kind of regressed, but then I asked by the third book, could he look not exactly calm, but more in control, more triumphant. He's much more. He's got a lid on things by the third book. So I think in my mind it was that he got angrier by the second book and then more cheerful again by the last one. That's what. Well, cheerful might be the wrong word.
Yeah, fair enough. Makes sense.
Yeah, but no. Right. So you don't really get to. You don't always get to see stuff, but I think it's pretty exciting when they do.
Yeah, and I can imagine there must be like, I don't know when I'm sort of writing stuff, because I write scripts for my law videos when I report on all the stuff that you lot do, because you know you're better at that than I am. I can't write fan fiction for love of money. But when I'm writing scripts, quite often in my head, I'm thinking about what sort of artwork, when I go looking for artwork, do I want to associate with this section? So I'm writing about, Mephiston. I'm writing about my script section on the bit where he falls to the Black Rage, and then Calistarius flips into Mephiston. And I'm looking for something in my head. I want a piece of artwork where he looks super angry. So I look for the Revenant Crusade cover. I don't know if in your head, when you're writing, part of your head is either the sort of storyboarding in your own head, like artwork sketches of what's going on, or like a live action of what's going on, or you're sketching the front cover in your own head. It's like, that's what I want in my head. That's what Mephiston looks like right now.
I don't know about other authors, but no, I don't really visualize the front. I do, so I do visualize lots of specific scenes, like scenes from a movie. I do have like a movie in my head. I don't know whether that's normal or not, but I do kind of visualize it in that sense, but not so much the cover. I go on these. So what I plan out the novel in a kind of. So you probably heard this from the other authors, but the way the process works is you come up with an initial kind of elevator pitch, like a short pitch of what you'd like to do with the novel, and then, but once that's approved, then you write out a detailed synopsis. So kind of officially, you've planned out the novel at the synopsis stage. That should really tell you what's going to happen, but it never works like that for me. I have to, every stage, each day when I'm about to write, I go on a walk, and I have to get into kind of a daydreaming state, like when I was meant to be doing maths at school and I was thinking about whatever I was thinking about. I have to get back to that kind of skiving off state of mind where my mind is wandering, and I go for a walk, and it's only when I start to have like scenes form visually in my head that I can actually write them. Then, does that make any sense? Having it written down quite in a dry way.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
because when I do lesson planning, I know it's very, very different. But when I'm lesson planning, any of my colleagues, if you've ever seen, they're not watching this, but when I'm walking around planning a lesson, I'm never sat at my desk planning. I'm stood up, pacing the room, and my hands are just waving around like I'm pointing at imaginary thought bubbles in my head. They do that.
That's exactly the same thing. And I think there must be a link. I'm sure a medically minded person could explain it, but there must be a link between getting your blood going. I presume it's just getting your heart rate up and getting the blood flowing triggers a different mental state. But if I sit, I'm sure other authors can do this, but if I sit in a chair staring at a screen, I'd never have an idea. I have to be up and about, walking around. So what you're describing with your lesson plans is exactly the same thing.
And one thing we have heard from other authors, sort of a blend of how a novel comes to be, because you said yourself for Blackstone that you were commissioned.
Yeah, I was asked to do that one. Yeah,
you were asked to do it, but then you also talk about coming up with these elevator pitches. And I remember with Josh Reynolds, he said that he did Lucas the Trickster on a bet. So that won't have been commissioned for him.
Yeah, it can work either way. You can pick.
Can I do the thing? Yeah. So was Mephiston a can I do the thing? Or was it Guy saying, hey, get Darius to do this because I think he'd be good at it? Or was it GW said to you, you're going to write Mephiston, go read up?
With Mephiston, I asked to do that one. So Blood Angels were always my favourite chapter in 40k. And he was a character that hadn't had a full novel. He'd had the David Annandale, I think it's just called The Lord of Death. There's a novella that exists anyway. But he'd never had a full novel, and I thought he's such an iconic character and such an interesting, the way he kind of embodies that duality thing, that repression thing. I thought, I asked to write a Mephiston novel, but it can work either way. I've had a mixture. I've had both things. The Blackstone Fortress where I've been asked, and think I've pitched quite a few things. Black Library are always open. Once you're part of their established team, they're always open to ideas. Because they know the best way to get a good book is if the author is really engaged and enthused about the thing that they're going to. So even if they did ask you to write a specific thing, they'll only want you to do it if they think you're really excited about it and you really
because it would be a bit odd asking, say, Adam Troke to write a Space Wolves book because he plays Dark Angels and by extension must therefore not like Space Wolves because that's just the rules.
I can't speak on his behalf, but I guess you definitely want to play to people's strengths. So a mixture of the bits of the IP. To be honest, with Warhammer, there aren't any bits of the IP I wouldn't find fun and challenging, but there are certain types of books I guess I'd find more fun. You mentioned earlier that I definitely like the weirder, stranger corners. Things. But it works either way. So that's the beauty of it. You can get asked to do a specific gig, or you can, if you've not got anything lined up, you can say, "Oh, there's this great miniature that's come out that I think would be a cool character for a novel." You can do it that way.
Yeah. So is there, obviously, I'm not going to ask you what you're working on, and I'm not going to ask you what you've pitched and been told. No. Because because I'm sure I could probably fill an episode with ideas Darius had that got rejected. Probably. But,
sorry, go on. Yeah.
But is there like a character or something? I said something that you'd love to see but wouldn't want to do. Is there anything that you've not been approached on, you've never pitched, but you think, you know what? If the opportunity knocked or there was a gap in my schedule, I'm going to go pitch that.
So there is a thing. Yeah, there's a thing that I think it could lead to a fight between me and Nick Kime. There's
Salamanders then.
No. He's got those all stitched up. But I think there are two characters in the Blackstone Fortress stories, and so in the second Blackstone Fortress novel, I've given a lot more screen time to Rain and Rouse, the two Rattling characters.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of low-life Rattling scumbags. And it's because I'd read there are two Nick Kime short stories about them. I think one's called The Motherlode. I can't remember what the other one's called, and they're amazing. If you've not read them, I can really recommend digging them out. But I really think they deserve a novel. They're just such great characters. But I think Nick might want to do that. So yeah, it could be fisticuffs at dawn. I don't know.
I mean, you could probably just write a Rattlings novel anyway, I guess, and just say it's definitely not these two.
I mean, here's a compromise. One of you writes Rain, the other one writes Rouse. There you go.
I like it. Would that be like we flip from paragraph to paragraph, like that game you used to do at school, where you'd write a section and fold the paper, and then no, maybe that would have worked.
Black Library writes by Chinese whispers. There we go. That's what could work.
But no, but I love them so much because the way Nick writes them is really funny. But they kind of embody that thing of 40k. Like they're the real scrappy underdog. The 40k universe is obviously the Imperium is so horrible, and people at that lowest rung of the ladder, it's just such a grim, miserable existence. But they're just this kind of relentlessly determined, and they kind of stick up for each other, but they won't give up. And that kind of encapsulates humanity in 40k to me. Like everything is just awful and hopeless, but the kind of that drive to just try and keep going anyway, even though there's no possible chance of success. And they embody that really well. So I think I'd love to do. But then the other thing, I don't think there's any commercial. It wouldn't make sense to do this, but before the old Warhammer blew up, there was a character called Sigvald.
Sigvald the Magnificent. Oh, that guy was a dick.
I loved writing him so much. So I wrote a whole novel about him, and then the world blew up, and I couldn't write anymore. So
the world's coming back. So who knows?
Yeah. So if he ever comes back, then I'd fight for a chance to write more about him.
I mean, just go write Lucius and add more body horror. I guess that's probably what you should try and do as a compromise.
So. Yeah.
Actually, someone's already done Lucius, haven't they? So you probably have to go and wrangle that, I guess. Has someone written a Lucius novel, Ram?
Yeah, Ian St. Martin.
That's it.
Oh, was it? Yeah. I knew there was one out there. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember him saying or asking either him or Josh if they end up working together briefly on the novel, because the fact that Fabius Bile was also a character in the novel as well. And this was at the time when Josh was writing the Fabius Bile novels, so...
Oh, right, yeah.
Because it appears to actually take place between the second and third Bile novel, the Lucius novel, so...
Okay.
Because it's about... because Lucius turns up in Camorra and Bile's still learning from the homunculi. It's like, oh yes, hello. I'm just... being schooled by the homunculi. I'm not going to betray them. Honest, sly looking. Dun, dun, dun.
Let's not forget the time that we tried to exercise a demon out of Fulgrim. Was Bile involved in that, or was it just Lucius in the reflection cracked? I can't remember. I feel like Bile...
No, I think Bile was in it as well.
Yeah, because Bile was obviously still with the Emperor's Children at the time of the reflection cracked.
It was
Bile... I think that takes the award for most forgotten novella ever, because everyone forgets that Fulgrim depossessed himself. Everyone forgets.
Is that a Graham McNeil one? I can't remember that.
I think it is, yeah.
I think, yeah. The thing is with the other characters is that, Games Workshop put out so many new miniatures all the time that look exciting. I think there's like a feeding frenzy from Black Library authors, the scrabble to get your hands on some of those characters. Because the guys in the studio, they give them these wonderful little snippets, of a bio that get your imagination going. So there's always new stuff coming out that looks exciting.
Yeah, we're still waiting for a full-length Gazgul Fracken novel.
Who was that? There was an Inquisitor character. I think it was part of the Psychic Awakening. Now, I don't think I'm breaking disclosure. I'm pretty sure she's a character. She was called Draxus, and she was
she's Psychic Awakening. Psychic Awakening 9. She was in.
I think she looks so cool, such a cool character. It'd be great to do novels about her, but I'm sure somebody's already snapped her up.
But yes, Gazgul Thraka novel into my vein, straight into my vein.
I mean, do you
from
know
his
who else?
point of view, maybe written by him.
Gazgul Thraka's memoirs.
Yeah.
Today I sat on Makari. I'm sad now, but I fed him too much squiggle, so it's all good.
No, I think he'd turn out to have a surprising love of poetry. I think he'd wax lyrical. He'd surprise you.
It'll be all written in calligraphy or something.
Yeah.
I mean, Orc script is basically calligraphy up to a point. It's all iconography rather than actual words. But it would be interesting to read something from an Orcish perspective, because obviously whenever we see Orcs talk, they're talking in Gothic, by which we mean they're talking in football hooligan, because the Orcs can't speak Gothic that well most of the time. So when the Orcs are actually speaking in Orc or writing in Orc, because they never bother, it would be really interesting to see how eloquent Orcish tongue actually is when they can actually use their own language, not having to borrow Gothic. Yeah.
I think it'd be great to have a novel. Who are the guys? They're kind of psychos, the ones that their heads blow up.
Weird Boys.
Weird Boys. I think there could be a good Weird Boy novel. Yeah,
because I remember you telling us last episode, Ram, about the mad boy who spoke in stupid, eloquent ultra physics. It's just more of that, please. But yeah, that would be cool. Right. Oh my God, we've been going for over an hour and a half.
But I will say, one character we still need a full-length novel for, because I think we've only actually had a novella for and a couple of audio dramas, Khan the Betrayer.
Right, yeah.
That would be good.
Did you say there's a novella out there, did you say?
Yeah, there's a novella called Khan, Eater of Worlds, and it's takes place before the events of Scalathrax. But we haven't actually had any novel detailing Scalathrax, from my understanding.
Yeah, and the other time I remember seeing his Lions novel, is the Azrael novel, I think.
Because
he's an iconic character, you'd think he'd have.
Yeah, because I remember a while ago, Josh Reynolds actually posted a thing, a tweet saying these were actually ideas he pitched to Black Library which were rejected. And one of them was a Scalathrax novel, but split between both the World Eaters and Emperor's Children point of views. And part of me was thinking, why the hell was that rejected? That sounds awesome. And apparently another one was Gotrek and Felix go to the zoo in Altdorf.
As a novel?
Yeah, and then causing chaos. So I was like, that could be quite funny.
That could be very funny.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess Gotrek and Felix could come back now, anyway, because
well, that's what I thought.
Isn't it?
That's what I thought Ghoulslayer was going to be about. I've still not got round to Ghoulslayer because I'm just so damn busy.
That's set in the.
But when Ghoulslayer was announced, my bet went straight to Gotrek is going to try and batter his weight in a gash to try and get Felix's soul back. That's what Gotrek is trying to do. Now, I don't know if that's what happens, and I don't know if you want to tell me, but that's what I feel like.
It's not exactly that. No, I mean he's got a few different agendas, and I think as the story progresses, he's coming to terms with the fact that Felix is not only dead but from a different world and a different kind of reality. So I think he knows that his obsession with Felix is not logical. But then I guess the Age of Sigmar, the Muscle Realm's on a logical place, so who knows? But no, it's not quite that. There's something else going on.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Teclis riding around on a Sphinx. Marathi's a giant snake thing. Malekith is fused with his own goddamn dragon. So who's to say that some random soul we have definitely not Cetra, the Lord Celestant, and definitely not Ikit Claw from the Hamilcar novels. It's why not try and get Felix back?
I think that's true. I think one of the things with Gotrek is you've got to give him some purchase on the new setting. I think, like I said earlier, I think David Geimer did a great job when he started off. Gotrek turns up and he's furious and nothing can. He's kind of he reminded me of the people that burnt their miniatures when Warhammer got went away and there was the Age of Sigmar. The people that would not accept that anything new could be as good as the others. I think he's kind of like a disgruntled old gamer, old Warhammer. Everything is rubbish and nothing in the new realms is as good as what he knew before. And I love that. But I think he needs to move beyond that. And I think that what's going to happen in the subsequent novels and as different authors tackle him is how he finds what is his purpose in the mortal realms. He needs
I mean,
to.
The guy can go Super Saiyan for God's sake.
Yeah, no, So again, it's kind of like the Mephiston thing as well, because he's pretty much a demigod now. He's been changed, but so he's got. You might not know he's got the rune of the Fire Slayer rune. Yeah. So and that's it's not stated exactly what's happening, but certainly Gotrek thinks that possibly this is Grimnir Grimnir possessing him, and so he's becoming like new Grimnir.
Yeah, because when he activates it, there's a short in Myths and Revenants where it activates. And it starts going, and the guy literally sets himself on fire, goes on a murder rampage, and essentially eats super deadly K-Nite poison, and it gives him just a stomach ache. He's like, that wasn't great. Right, let's go kill something, and goes and kills something. Like, what?
No one can really touch him. I mean, but then, as we said, the realms are a crazy place with the larger than life characters. But he needs to find. So what is his challenge? And what is his he needs a purpose. So he's honourable. He's got, there's a kind of dwarf. The dwarves are a very honourable race. They're very believe in tradition and honour and respecting their ancestry and ancestors. So he's got all that baggage with him. So he can't just kind of bimble around the realms being a bum and just he's got to have a purpose. And I think that's part of his challenge. He's working out what that is. But I hope, I mean, they did that great new miniature for him. What I'm hoping is the studio, the Games Workshop, really kind of tie him into the main narrative Age of Sigmar. He seems like he should be one of the key players, I think, because he's not on the massive scale of something like Nagash or Malekith. He's a little bit more like I wouldn't say a normal person, but he's slightly kind of, he's the kind of person that could walk into an inn and talk to some people. He could actually do quite normal things. So I think he's useful in that sense.
Yeah, I've got an idea of, before Broken Realms was announced for AOS, I had this idea of AOS 3 being the Great War and destruction comes rolling in. And you just imagine Gotrek like, right, there's a massive pile of orcs on the rampage. Right then, I'm going to get busy. And Sigmar takes notice. It's like, Grimnir 2.0. You're coming off the Pantheon of Order, my friend. Reforms the Pantheon of Order, and Gotrek is the straight man of the Pantheon of Order, where Marathi is scheming, Malerian's scheming, Alariel's just evil-ish, Tyrion's an idiot, Teclis is an even bigger idiot, Sigmar's an even bigger idiot, and then you just have Gotrek like, what am I even doing here?
Well, he'd hate them all as well. He really wouldn't want to do that.
Especially because there's 5 pointy ears in one room.
Well, also he's got it in his head that everyone betrayed him. He feels like he was promised this doom. Finally, he was going to achieve his doom in the realm of chaos. And even then, even his entire world, everybody else died, but not him. So he's got this massive chip on his shoulder. But yeah, I think that's cool, if the idea of the gods noticing him. But I think in a way you'd lose something if you took him away from. At the moment, you get that ground level view. Like I say, he can walk into a normal place, talk to some normal people. The Age of Sigmar is on that because it's on that really. It's got that high fantasy element where everything's on a huge scale. It's nice to have a recognizable character that's just slightly more ground level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as much as I love the grand, epic, high fantasy Greek tragedy of the elven gods in particular, because I'm just an elves fanboy and I have been forever.
I just had a thought, because obviously you know more about AOS than I do. Did Thanquol survive the end times?
Yes, Thanquol and Bone Ripper are a unit in the Skaven Battle Tome, and Thanquol is kind of like a rogue.
Right.
Like a rogue agent.
I think they've been.
Hang on, I've got the Battle Tome here. Hold on.
I think they've interacted in fiction as well.
Yeah, because what I recall, there was at least one Gotrek novel where him and Thanquol basically, were like pretty much, pitted against one another. So they could have a long overdue rematch.
No, I think I think that's probably been. That's absolutely right, and he's definitely a nemesis. He's they're kind of old enemies, and I think. I can't remember, but I'm sure that's been touched upon in some of because there's been a few short stories and maybe in one of the audio dramas. But yeah, I'm sure that will come to it. The fact that those two are knocking around in the mortal realms, I'm sure.
I can just imagine it like Thanquol just encountering Gotrek and be like, "Oh God, not you again!"
Yeah, still here. Yeah, definitely.
And
how are you not dead?
And the Gotrek's like, you. Of all the things from all the places that survived the world blowing up, it had to be you.
Maybe be pleased to see a familiar face, though. Maybe be like, at least somebody that knows who I am is here. And then they have to fight, obviously.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I was just having a look at Thanquol's lore very quickly there. Essentially, he's just a complete random variable. Like, no, he's completely delusional, addicted to Warpstone. His schemes are ludicrously grandiose and almost entirely blow up in his face. And no one knows what he wants. So, yeah, absolutely. Thanquol and Go Trick the Remax. Bring it on.
Yeah,
bring it on.
That's a good idea.
Right, where are we? Oh, my goodness, we've been going for like an hour and 45 minutes. And, oh, my God, that was so much fun.
Yes.
Right, Rem, is there anything from I know this is with it being a Black Library author show, we don't always get time for loads of questions, but is there anything particularly grabbed your interest from last episode's comments?
Unfortunately, there have been no questions for Darius on this particular instance, I'm afraid.
Because we didn't know when you were going to be able to be free, so we didn't re-announce you were coming.
Let me just have a quick look. See if there's anything that particularly captures my attention. Is it possible that the original Sisters of Battle that lived on Sanlior and were found by Vandire were descendants of the Sisters of Silence that were banished after the Horus Heresy? I'm gonna say no, considering that the Inquisition, the Ecclesiarchy really didn't like the Sisters of Silence because they viewed the fact that they were souls as being abominations.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, the Sisters of Silence were recalled in the War of the Beast for the most part, and if they were descended from the Silent Sisterhood, then there would be blank Sisters of Battle, and the only one I know of is Ephrael Stern.
She's not a blank, though.
And she's not even a blank. She's like the opposite of a blank.
She's a psycho. She's like a super... She's so much of a psycho that she's pretty much Emperor 2.0. If you go by the whole Emperor was created by the Shaman's origin story, she is literally like that on a smaller scale.
Yeah, so... Yeah, I think it's unlikely, but, never know.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to have a blank Sister of Battle at some point, though. Because then you could have like just these competing authorities trying to get their hands on her and all of that.
Right. Bloody things. For some reason, it's auto-loading onto a new video. Don't do that. Right. Okay. Let's have a quick look. Is there a specific cutoff point for when a Space Marine is to be fixed / given bionics, or turned into a dreadnought, or is just beyond saving? To explain, at what point is a Space Marine too injured that he can't be healed and the only option is a dreadnought, and what point is a Marine too injured for even a dreadnought?
I like the idea of a scientific measure for how broken somebody is. So.
I would guess it would depend on the apothecaries, because, like, if you've got, to stay with the Blood Angels, if you've got Corbulo right there, then Corbulo can fix a lot more than your average Tom, Dick, or Harry Tacticus can. So it might depend on, is there a very good apothecary versus a very good tech marine nearby?
Wasn't there
what's more convenient?
Wasn't there anything in one of the Psychic Awakening books? Was that Primaris Dark Angel? What was his name?
Lazarus,
yeah. Wasn't he like, oh, he's too injured for a dreadnought, but he can be primarified, so that's fine.
Yeah, and then Ragnar Blackmane dies to Gazkul, and probably was broken beyond the point of dreadnoughtification, and he got Primaris. So it's kind of like, what even is the point of a dreadnought now? Because the Rubicon exists. Well, you have Redemptors, but no one wants to be a Redemptor. They burn you out in 5 minutes flat. They're awful. They're evil. You never want to be a Redemptor. But, yeah.
Unless you're on a suicide mission. That's the point, actually. I can imagine, like, if you have a Blood Angels, like, a Blood Angel has succumbed to, like, the Black Rage, but he's, like, such a good fighter. It's like, well, do we want to save him or not? I don't know. Just primarify him, shove him to a Redemptor, shove him out as a Death Company Redemptor.
And the other, because obviously the Death Company Dreadnoughts come about not because of a Death Company Marine being interred, but because the Death Company
after being interred.
Yeah, the Marine themselves slips. Now, obviously, you can't just pull them out of one chassis and put them into another. That's not how Dreadnoughts work. But it would be really interesting if now they've got intercessors in the Death Company. Will they add in the idea of Death Company Redemptors, or would they burn out too fast? Or would it be that, as you suggest, okay, they're slipping. We have got a spare Dreadnought chassis over there because the last pilot just burnt. Why don't we just turn that Redemptor into a suicide hotbox where you throw it? That sounds really awful, and I've just said that out loud. I've just said that out loud. I'm like, why the hell have I just said that? You know what I mean? Though? It's like we have a Dreadnought chassis standing there. There's no one in it. So why don't we just use that as a Death Company throwaway device? Because we know the chassis will survive. It's Primaris tech. So just chuck them in that. And if they survive the battle, the Dreadnought will do our job for us. We don't need Asterath. Done. God, I sound evil when I say that. Please do not ever take that quote out of context. Animator, are you listening? Don't take that out of context.
I will say this, though, I can imagine the Marines malevolent pulling this ship.
Yep, absolutely.
If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be them, let's be honest.
Absolutely. Wouldn't argue with that. But then again, oh God, why has there never been a Death Company Librarian Dreadnought? That needs to be a thing, because Librarian Dreadnoughts are a thing. You have to wonder, would they ever Dreadnoughtify Mephiston? So he's just too powerful. He's finally given up. Wait, Dreadnought. We can have a Dreadnought Mephiston. Or is that too dangerous?
Dreadnought Mephiston, more like Mechiston.
Yeah. Got a name now, it's real.
Yeah, there you go.
Just turn Vitaris into a punch dagger and have him just flying around on his flayed skin turned into Dreadnought bat wings, and he's just like, yeah, no, that's a terrible idea. He's far too dangerous, and when he starts going senile, God help you all. Because that's one Dreadnought that would never take a nap.
They'll just do what I do with Chaos Dreadnoughts, just remove the sarcophagus and just chain it down for good measure.
Probably, yeah.
As a point, Tech Marine Dreadnoughts, why aren't they a thing?
Because how would you work a techno harness of that? I think it's probably just a matter of scale. It's the servo harness is obviously bio-linked into the Tech Marine's host body, I guess. So you'd have to bio-link it to the chassis, which you could do. But then why would you ever need parts that big and cumbersome? You just break everything you were trying to fix.
You don't even necessarily need to give it a servo arm. I mean, if anything, you just adapt one of the Dreadnought close combat weapons to be the servo arm, in essence.
But why would it would be too big and cumbersome to fix anything?
Because, you got Chaplain Dreadnought, you got Librarian Dreadnought, you got Death Company Dreadnoughts, you got pretty much every other type of Dreadnought, except for a Tech Marine.
Wolf and Dreadnoughts.
Yeah, Wolf and Dreadnoughts, yeah. The only other one you don't have is, Apothecary Dreadnought, which would be can you imagine, a big Narcetheon Dreadnought thing that's I'm going to heal you, stab. Oh dear. I just looked a hole the size of someone's head inside your chest.
Actually, I think I have a reason. Mars. Because, especially, this is true for the Dark Angels in particular, they don't like the Tech Marines and will never put them in the inner circle because of the fact that they're dual linked to the chapter and Mars. What if they don't want the survivors of the chapter's legacy, those who are going to live for hundreds or thousands of years, like Beyond the Foul-Handed, to have split loyalties to Mars, where they can be reprogrammed to serve the forces of Mars, because they've already got that binary code. They might think they could set up a sleeper code almost, so that if the Space Marine chapter gets troublesome, flip the switch, now that Tech Marine Dreadnought works for Mars and is going on a murder rampage. Maybe that's why. Or maybe just Tech Marines aren't that interesting, and so the chapter would never think to bother. Harsh, but they're not commanders. Chaplains and librarians are spiritual leaders and some of the most important warriors in the chapter. Tech Marines are the mechanics, and that's take nothing away from mechanics, because God, everyone needs a good engineer in their life, but they're not the frontliners that you'd expect to be the revered heroes of the chapter, unless your name is Iron Hands, at which point everyone's a Tech Marine pretty much. I don't know, just some ideas.
Fair enough. Are there any records of Eldar who actively worship the Chaos Gods knowingly or not?
No. There are cases of elves doing it, but not Eldar.
Counterpoint. I know for a fact in the second edition Codex, it does talk about Eldar Champions of Chaos.
Oh, didn't know that.
But I don't think that's really been touched upon recently. But I do remember it is flat out stated in the second edition codex.
Ah, fair enough. Yeah, because obviously with like Warcry and stuff, you have got elves in service to the Chaos Gods of some way or another, with the Splintered Fang. But I didn't see it. And obviously back in Fantasy, Marathi, in some editions of Fantasy, that's where Marathi was a Slanesh worshipper. And in the end times, she went to Khorne.
In the 5th edition Dark Elf army book, it did say in her unit profile that she could take spells from both the Dark Magic deck and the Slanesh Magic deck.
Yeah, and in the end times, the forces of Cain and Tyrion and Marathi end up falling to Khorne. Hargoneth goes to Khorne in the end times. So I know it's a thing in Fantasy and AOS, but I've never heard of it in 40k. So you've just proved that it does happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a thing among some Dark Eldar, actually.
We'll do one last question, considering we're getting a bit on in time. When are you going to do more chapters of Tactica Tutorialis?
When I have 5 minutes. I'm actually using my Tutorialis lessons now as resources for my students. I actually, this week, gave out details of the playlist to 3 or 4 different classes. So they may be watching this now, some of my students. Hello, students. Please do not be watching this show. But that said, I probably will try and get an episode out where I can, because I love doing those science videos. And I've picked up so much more material through doing my teaching practice and having to teach in COVID rules where I've got to stay in a box, stand at the front and talk, that I really would love to do more, but I just haven't got the time right now because I'm working what feels like 14-hour days during the week, but it feels like I'm working.
Your days are that short? Lucky.
I mean, I'm leaving home at 7:15 in the morning, usually not leaving work until 5 or 6 o'clock at night, getting home, having a snack, having some dinner, and then I'm straight back to work until 11 o'clock at night. So, yeah, okay, it's not your YouTuber hours, but you'd have to stand up and talk for 6. Well, you'd have to talk. You have to stand up and talk to 200 kids across the day for 6 hours a day on top of all the work you do.
Fair point.
But yes, I will try and do more tutorials when I can, because I know how useful it is to me, and also I'm now using it to teach my students. So absolutely, there will be more one day. And with that, we have hit roughly the 2-hour mark, so I think we should probably call it time there because, oh God, this has been so much fun, but I could keep going and going and going, and I think all of us probably could. So, thank you, everybody. This has been episode 106 of Adeptus Podcastus. Thank you very much to Darius Hinks for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome back, obviously, in the future, anytime we can sort something out.
Cool.
And if you want to pass the word around your colleagues that, we're good people, we're actually not too scary to talk to, by all means, spread the word. Because more guests never hurts. We need to get Gav back, I think, because someone needs to pick his brains about the whole, Necron and Eldari working together to fight Slanesh in the Ynnari books and what the heck happened there and all of that. So yeah, I think we do need to try and get some more Black Library people on if we can work it out.
I'll spread the word, yeah.
Awesome. So thank you very much, and thank you everyone at home for watching. We hope you have enjoyed this long, rambly road to nowhere, though it's gone all over the place, and it's been an absolute pleasure. I love when shows go like this. They're such great fun to record because you never know where they're going, and it's just, great. So thank you very much for watching, everyone. We will see you in a couple of weeks for the next episode, which will be over on the 40k Theories channel. But in the meantime, this has been Tactica Imperialis.
This has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
This is Darius from Black Library.
And we'll see you all again. Goodbye.